I checked my girlfriend's phone while she was sleeping, and my heart dropped. I know I shouldn't have done it. I know trust is the foundation of every relationship, but something in my gut just wouldn't let it go. It started with the late-night messages. Her phone lighting up at odd hours, always facing down on the nightstand. Then came the hushed conversations, the sudden silences when I walked into the room. I tried to ignore it. I told myself I was being paranoid. But last night, when she fell asleep beside me, her phone vibrated once again. I reached for it. Her face, peaceful in the dim glow of the bedside lamp, barely moved. My heartbeat pounded in my ears as my fingers hovered over the screen. I knew her passcode. It wasn't even something she had hidden from me. I had seen her enter it a dozen times before. The screen unlocked. At first, nothing seemed off. Just the usual apps, social media, some unread messages. But then, I saw it. A conversation pinned at the top of her messages. One I had never noticed before. A name I didn't recognize. Unknown number. My chest tightened as I tapped on it. The messages loaded. My hands trembled. The most recent text read, "Same time tomorrow?" He still doesn't suspect anything. I stared at the screen, my stomach twisting into knots. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it. Who was she meeting? What didn't I suspect? My breath hitched as I scrolled up. Unknown number. Last night was amazing. I can't wait to see you again. Her reply, "Me too. I missed you so much." My throat went dry. I clenched my jaw, trying to control the flood of emotions. Was she cheating on me? I needed answers. But before I could scroll further, something happened that made my heart nearly stop. The phone buzzed in my hand. A new message. From the same number. If he ever finds out the truth, we're both screwed. I felt my entire world collapse in an instant. I looked over at her, still peacefully asleep, unaware that everything was about to change. My hands felt clammy as I stared at the new message on her phone. If he ever finds out the truth, we're both screwed. My breath caught in my throat. The truth? What truth? I wanted to believe there was some logical explanation, but the words on the screen told a different story. I glanced at her. She was still fast asleep, her chest rising and falling in a peaceful rhythm. How could she look so innocent while hiding something like this? My fingers itched to scroll further, to dig deeper, but my pulse was so loud in my ears that I could barely think. I scrolled up. The messages went back weeks. They were careful. No names, no explicit details, but the tone was undeniable. Unknown number. You have to keep this between us. If he ever finds out, it's over. Her reply, I know. I promise. I'll take care of it. Take care of what? My stomach twisted. My mind raced through every possible scenario, each one worse than the last. Was she planning to leave me? Was she seeing someone else behind my back? Or, God forbid, was it something even darker? I needed answers. Now I nudged her shoulder. Lena, I whispered. She stirred but didn't wake. I nudged her again, harder this time. Lena. Her eyes fluttered open, groggy and unfocused. What's wrong? She mumbled, rubbing her face. I held up the phone, the screen still glowing. What the hell is this? Her eyes widened. For a split second I saw it, pure panic. Then, just as quickly, she masked it with confusion. What are you talking about? I turned the screen toward her. These messages. Who the hell is this? What truth are you hiding from me? She sat up now, fully awake. You went through my phone? Her voice was sharp, deflecting. I don't care about that right now. I snapped. Answer me. She stared at me, her mind working fast, trying to come up with a response. But she was a second too slow. The phone buzzed again. Another message. I glanced down. Unknown number. He knows, doesn't he? Lena's face drained of color. I swallowed hard. Tell me the truth, now. She hesitated. Then, in a small, shaky voice, she said something that made my blood run cold. You don't understand. I was trying to protect you. Protect me? I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. My grip tightened around her phone as I stared at her, waiting for an explanation. Any explanation that would make this make sense. Lena sat up fully now, pulling the blanket around her like a shield. Her breathing was uneven, her eyes darting between me and the phone. Just listen to me, she said, her voice shaky. I wanted to tell you, but I didn't know how. Tell me what? My patience was wearing thin. Who is this person? What are you hiding? She hesitated, chewing on her lip, her mind clearly racing. Then, finally, she exhaled sharply and spoke. I didn't cheat on you, okay? It's not that. A brief wave of relief washed over me, but it was quickly replaced by suspicion. Then what is it? Lena swallowed hard. It's about your brother, Nate. I felt like the ground had just been ripped from under me. My brother? My voice cracked. What does Nate have to do with this? She looked away, guilt etched all over her face. I didn't want to be the one to tell you, but Nate was involved in something dangerous, something illegal. My blood turned to ice. Lena, stop playing games, I said, my voice low and tense. What are you talking about? She inhaled deeply. A few months ago, he got mixed up with some bad people. He owed them money, serious money. He tried to get out of it, but they threatened him. And when he couldn't pay, they came to me. The room spun. They came to you? I repeated, barely able to process her words. She nodded, her hands gripping the blanket so tightly her knuckles turned white. I was the closest person to him. They thought I'd be able to get the money from you without raising suspicion. I shook my head, stepping back. That doesn't make any sense. Why wouldn't Nate come to me himself? Because he was trying to protect you too, she snapped. He knew you'd try to fix things. And these people, they don't just forgive debts. They destroy lives. He didn't want to drag you into it. My heart was hammering now. So what did you do? Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. I met with them. I tried to negotiate. But they gave me an ultimatum. I swallowed hard. What kind of ultimatum? She hesitated. Then, barely above a whisper, she said, either I paid them off or they were coming after you next. Silence. I stared at her, my mind reeling. My whole body felt numb. Lena, I said slowly, how much money are we talking about? Her lip trembled. $50,000. I felt sick. Before I could even respond, her phone vibrated again. We both turned to look at it. Another message from the unknown number. Time's up. We're done waiting. My heart nearly stopped. Lena's breath hitched. Oh, God, she whispered. I turned to her. Lena, what did you do? The room felt colder. The walls seemed to close in as I stared at the message on Lena's phone. Time's up. We're done waiting. A sickening realization hit me. This wasn't just some empty threat. This was real. I turned to Lena, my voice barely steady. What do they mean by done waiting? What did you do? She was trembling now, hugging herself like she was trying to keep from falling apart. I thought I could stall them. I told them I'd get the money soon, but I don't have it, and now... A loud knock at the door made us both freeze. Bang, bang, bang. It was past midnight. No one should be here. Lena's face drained of color. No, she whispered. The knock came again, harder this time. I moved toward the window, my hands shaking as I pulled back the curtain just enough to peek outside. A black SUV was parked down the street, its headlights off. A voice, deep and firm, came from the other side of the door. We know you're in there. Open up. My pulse skyrocketed. Lena, tell me right now, who are these people? She shook her head frantically. You don't understand. They don't just want the money anymore. If they're here, it's worse than I thought. Bang, bang. We're not asking again. Lena grabbed my hand, her fingers ice cold. We have to run. I was still trying to process everything. Run where? We don't even know what they want. She looked me dead in the eyes, fear making her voice tremble. If we don't leave now, we won't get another chance. Another knock, this time more like a slam. The sound of a lockpick scratching against the handle sent chills down my spine. Whoever they weren't leaving without something. Or someone. I had no choice. Come on, I whispered, grabbing Lena's hand and pulling her toward the back door. As we reached the kitchen, the front door burst open with a loud crash. Heavy footsteps, voices, and then a voice I didn't recognize, calm and cold, called out, You should have paid up, sweetheart. Lena squeezed my hand tight. Run. And we did. We bolted out the back door, the cold night air slapping against my skin. My heart pounded as Lena dragged me through the yard, her grip like a vice around my wrist. Behind us, I heard them moving inside. Heavy boots against hardwood, low voices muttering. Then, find them. I didn't dare look back. Lena pulled me toward the side gate, her breath coming in sharp gasps. She fumbled with the latch, her hands shaking so badly she could barely lift it. Hurry, I hissed. The front door had been loud, but I knew if they wanted to, they could be quiet. They could already be creeping through the house, slipping through the rooms like shadows. The latch finally lifted and we slipped into the alleyway. Lena didn't stop running. I followed her blindly, my mind racing. I still didn't fully understand what was happening. All I knew was that we were in danger, and Lena had been keeping secrets. We cut through a darkened neighborhood, weaving between fences and empty lots. Every sound, the rustling of leaves, a distant dog barking, made my pulse spike. After what felt like forever, Lena pulled me into an abandoned parking lot behind a rundown gas station. She doubled over, hands on her knees, trying to catch her breath. I wasn't having it. I grabbed her by the shoulders, forcing her to look at me. Enough running. Start talking. Who are they? What do they want? Lena wiped sweat from her forehead, her eyes filled with panic. I told you, Nate owed them money. When he disappeared, they turned to me. I tried to stall, tried to buy time, but... Disappeared? I cut her off. What do you mean, disappeared? She hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. My stomach dropped. Lena, where is my brother? She opened her mouth, but before she could answer... A car screeched to a stop at the end of the alley. Blinding headlights washed over us. A door slammed. Then a voice. Low, cold, dangerous. You two gave us quite the workout tonight. Lena's grip tightened on my arm. We have to go. But before we could move, something metallic glinted under the streetlight. A gun, pointed right at us. Not this time, the man said. You're coming with us. The night air was thick with tension. My pulse thundered in my ears as I stared at the gun pointed directly at us. Lena's grip tightened around my wrist. I could feel her trembling. The man holding the gun took a slow step forward. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in black. His face was mostly hidden in shadow, but his voice was sharp, cutting through the night like a blade. You two gave us quite the workout tonight. Another man stepped out of the car behind him. Shorter, stockier, wearing a leather jacket. He cracked his knuckles and grinned. Boss says it's time to settle this. No more running. Lena exhaled shakily. Please, just let him go. He has nothing to do with this. The man with the gun laughed, a slow, humorless chuckle. Oh, sweetheart, that's where you're wrong. His gaze flicked to me. See, your brother thought he could outsmart us, that he could run, disappear. But family means leverage. And you? He smirked. You just became our bargaining chip. My stomach twisted. I looked at Lena, and for the first time, I saw something deeper in her eyes. Not just fear. Guilt. A sickening thought hit me. You knew this was going to happen, didn't you? I whispered. Lena swallowed hard. I was trying to fix it before they got to you. Fix it? I repeated, my voice rising. Lena, you lied to me. You let me think this was about you, but it was never about you, was it? This was always about Nate. Her eyes shined with unshed tears. I didn't want you to get hurt. Touching. The man with the gun said, clearly amused. But I'm getting impatient. He lifted the gun a little higher. Both of you, get in the car. Now. Lena didn't move. Neither did I. Last chance. The man warned. I clenched my fists. I wasn't going to just walk into my own kidnapping. But what could I do? We were trapped. Then, a sound. Distant at first, but getting closer. Screeching tires. A car coming fast. The men turned just as headlights appeared at the end of the alley. The roar of an engine filled the air. The vehicle skidded to a stop just feet away from us. The driver's side door flew open. And stepping out, gripping the wheel with one hand and a gun with the other, was Nate, my brother, alive. Let them go, he growled, aiming the gun at the men. For a moment, no one moved. The shock of seeing Nate threw them off just long enough. Then everything exploded into chaos. The moment I saw Nate standing there, alive and armed, my mind barely had time to process it before everything exploded into chaos. The man holding the gun turned toward Nate, raising his weapon. Bang! A gunshot echoed through the alley. I ducked on instinct, yanking Lena down with me. My ears rang as I hit the pavement, my heart slamming against my ribs. I looked up just in time to see the taller man staggering backward, clutching his shoulder. Nate had shot him. Get in the car, Nate shouted at us. Lena and I didn't hesitate. We scrambled to our feet, sprinting toward Nate's car. The second thug, the one in the leather jacket, lunged at me, but I twisted out of his grip, shoving him back. Move, Lena screamed. We reached the car just as the injured man roared in pain and fired back. Bullets shattered the passenger side window. Go, 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 I yelled as I dove into the back seat, Lena right behind me. Nate didn't wait. The second we were inside, he slammed his foot on the gas. Tires screeched against the asphalt as we tore out of the alley, leaving the men behind. I turned in my seat, breathing hard, watching as the figures grew smaller in the distance. But I knew this wasn't over. I whipped my head around to face Nate. What the hell is going on? Where have you been? Nate gritted his teeth, hands tight on the wheel. I didn't have a choice, he muttered. I had to disappear. Lena was shaking. Nate, they said you owed them money. $50,000. He let out a bitter laugh. Yeah, I did. But I also found out something they didn't want me to know. Lena and I exchanged a glance. What are you talking about? I demanded. Nate exhaled sharply. That debt? It was never just about money. They wanted me to do something for them. Something bad. When I refused, they didn't just come after me. They were using me to get to something bigger. I frowned. Something bigger? Nate's jaw tightened. I think I know who they really work for. And trust me, we're in way deeper than I thought. My stomach twisted. The nightmare wasn't over. It was only just beginning. Nate sped through the empty streets, his knuckles white against the steering wheel. My mind was still reeling from everything. The gunshots, the chase, the fact that my brother, who I thought was gone, had just saved us. But what he said last kept echoing in my head. We're in way deeper than I thought. I turned to him. Nate, just tell us. Who are they really working for? He hesitated. His grip tightened, his gaze locked on the road. You wouldn't believe me if I told you. Try me, I said, my voice sharp. Lena leaned forward from the back seat, her voice barely above a whisper. Nate, are we safe? Nate let out a bitter laugh. Safe? We were never safe. A chill ran down my spine. What do you mean? Nate exhaled and glanced at me through the rearview mirror. You think this is just about money? This goes deeper. I found out something. Something I wasn't supposed to. That's why they came after me. And now that you two are involved? He shook his head. There's no going back. I swallowed hard. What did you find out? The car suddenly jerked as Nate made a sharp turn onto a desolate road, heading toward an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. He parked and killed the engine. The only sound was our ragged breathing and the distant hum of the city. Then he turned to us, his face unreadable. You need to see for yourselves. Lena and I exchanged a glance. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to get as far away from this as possible. But it was too late. We had already stepped too far into the darkness. Nate pushed open his door, motioning for us to follow. My heart pounded as I stepped out, Lena right behind me. The cold night air felt suffocating. We approached the warehouse. Nate pulled out a key and unlocked the rusted metal door. It groaned as it swung open, revealing pitch-black darkness inside. Come on, Nate said. I hesitated. Nate, what the hell is in there? He turned to me, his expression grave. The truth. Then he stepped inside, disappearing into the shadows. Lena grabbed my hand. I don't like this, she whispered. Neither did I, but something told me we had no choice. We stepped inside. The door slammed shut behind us, and the lights flickered on. What I saw made my blood run cold. And in that moment, I realized we were never supposed to make it out of this alive.